Well, good Sunday morning. Well, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And on this course, the first stretch is almost behind us. So while one chapter ends, another one is set to begin. Early voting has now come to a close as the final stretch winded down. Enthusiastic supporters from both sides made their final pitch to voters. In all, over 20,000 Webb County voters took part in the primary contest for both parties. On the ballot for voters to decide on several key races, and that includes the county judge, the 111th District Court Judge, U.S. Senate for both parties, the 28th Congressional District, propositions, and a whole lot more. Winners emerging from this stage will secure their spot for November. Election Day is this coming Tuesday, March the 3rd, and that's where we begin this morning's discussion. Joining us are KGNS political contributors Carlos Guerra and Tanya Benavides. They are joined by KGNS General Manager Luis Villarreal. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning.
What a primary it has been. Wow, I don't even know where to begin this morning because from the get-go, we saw things that we just hadn't seen before.
Yeah, it got a little heated earlier than we expected.
Yes, it did. It did. Tanya, I'm going to start with you. What's your perspective on what we just went through?
Well, yeah, I think, it's very exciting to see voter turnout for once, right? I think when you compare midterm to midterm, right, as of Friday, we were about 3,000 more Democratic voters than in 2022 midterm, about 1,000 more Republican voters than in 22 midterm. I think an interesting trend has been that relatively Democratic turnout is not as high compared to 2022 compared to the Republican turnout that is almost double than it was in the primary in 2022.
Wow. Yeah, those numbers are pretty staggering. Carlos?
There's nothing to be proud of, though. I mean, what I'm saying is we still are not very good at coming out to vote. I mean, I know we're better than we've been or comparing midterm to midterm, but still.
No, absolutely.
I
I would like to see the Democratic turnout higher.
Right.
I mean, it might be the anger that has been, lodged. There's different campaigns that have had some controversies, right? One that comes to mind is the Anything But CY campaign that we've seen.
ABC.
And ABC, Anything But CY. But for me, I'm not sure that it's having the effect that they want it to have. It's making CY, in my opinion, one of two candidates as opposed to one of four candidates.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like him against the field.
Right.
But Mindy and I were discussing yesterday that the younger generation, so some of us are very familiar with the name CY and the family and all that, but walking around, even here in our office, I've heard comments like, "Who's Cy?" And so, who's this Cy guy?
Yeah.
And so it kind of got us into like, oh my gosh, okay, so maybe, maybe the name recognition that has been happening because of the campaign against him.
Yeah.
Any news is good news.
Bolster him.
And I think that campaign against him was trying to remind people of something that happened for some of us in a distant past, for others of us not so distant past, right? Like, a lot of people just seem to have forgotten about the landfill scandal and what repercussions that would have had for a city. I do think, though, we need to gear up for a runoff, right? And that means they're going to have to keep at it. We're going to keep getting those ugly mailers, y'all. I'm sorry. I don't think that's ending anytime soon. And we're just going to have to see where we land.
Yeah, a lot of mailers have been sent out on that one. So there are, of course, we saw the graphic right there on the screen. There are 4 candidates for county judge. Do you think any one will take it without a runoff, or do you think there will be a runoff?
I suspect there's going to be a runoff, and I'm not 100% certain, but I suspect it's going to be CY and then anyone but CY, right? It's going to be one of the two. So.
Okay, well, let's move on to the 111th. That one has turned into quite the race early on, like we talked a little bit about. The 111th District Judge. Carlos, you're an attorney. You work for the DA's office. That's a very important seat for you all.
Absolutely. No, it is an important seat, and I'm sad to see so much negativity in that race, given that it's a judicial race. I think negativity is important to the extent that it informs the voters, but to the extent that it's just meant to put the other person down, I don't think it's so necessary, especially because I think both candidates are very well qualified for the job.
Okay. So
Yeah, it's kind of difficult to see, particularly when you know the two candidates and you, as you said, Carlos, they seem to be qualified, and there seems to be more of an upside if we were discussing positive things and
The
maybe
seat itself,
itself,
right?
right? As
Like,
opposed to anybody's, dirty laundry. But yeah, it is what it is.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, let's move on to another race that we have. Let's talk about the Democratic. I don't know. There's so many that we can go with. Let's go with this one right here. The United States Senator, Democratic primary, Jasmine Crockett, James Tallarico, both of them in Laredo this past week. So they are really, really stumping.
I think this is where that trend about the relative vote, right? You compare the Democratic vote to the Republican vote.
Right.
Republican vote is almost twice as it was. Democratic vote is a little bit higher, but I think a race like this, I would expect the Democratic turnout to be a lot higher than it is. I think I have not had a single conversation this week with the majority being in favor of one candidate over the other. I will
Really?
say that much. I think
You think they're already decided?
no.
No,
no,
they're
no, no. I think a lot
undecided.
of people were walking into the poll still, flipping the coin. And Harris County is going to be for sure detrimental and, sort of like where the battleground is in terms of the seat. North Texas, if it pulls off for Jasmine, that'll be good. I think. I was surprised to see even in the RGV in the Rio Grande Valley there was both sentiments for Jasmine and for James. I would expect that to be more of a James seat, right? Not to talk about Texas 15, but Bobby Pulido and James Tallarico came out pretty early on, and I thought that was going to mean the Valley would go for James, but we'll see.
What do you think of the message that Tallarico has been putting out there that is very much anti-ICE, anti all this stuff? I mean, do you think it's playing well down here with us?
Especially in the Valley, I think it is.
It is?
The South Texas Business Association has said the Rio Grande Valley will never be red again. I don't think that's entirely true, but I do think that the effect on the economy has been something that people have really been hinging on. And Jasmine was here yesterday, and she had the same message, right? She also messaged on the wall, right? And I think that's a place where maybe James hasn't dug his heels in as much down here. So I think that was smart on Jasmine to do that yesterday.
Wow. What do you think on
Yeah, I
this?
mean, it's very interesting. His message is one that's really anti-Trump, and the controversy with him, I think what made him trend this past month was the controversy with Paramount. He went on to the Stephen Colbert show, and they said that they weren't going to air it because supposedly the FCC was telling them not to, and I think that made it more interesting, right? You want to hear from a candidate, especially when you think that the government's telling you not to hear from them.
Well, that opens up a kind of discussion that we could get into as far as equal time and stuff. The distinction that the FCC was trying to make was that there are legitimate news programs that don't get into the whole equal time thing, and then there are entertainment shows like The View or the late night shows that are not under that same exemption, and so that's what the argument was, whether we agree with it or not. But moving from that, I think it's also interesting to see how the Republican Party is pushing for Jasmine, because
Right.
they believe that she's easier to defeat than Tallarico, and so I think there's a big push to get her to be the nominee, so that it would be an easier for whomever comes out on the other side, because that one's still anybody's guess.
Yeah, what are you thinking about on the Republican side of that?
I mean, I think recent polls have shown that they both poll better against Paxton, right, as opposed to John Cornyn. But I did see that Tallarico polls slightly better against John Cornyn. but they both are in a dead heat against Paxton.
What I'm wondering is if Wesley Hunt is going to pull enough votes to force a runoff. I think that's probably the last thing that the GOP wants to see.
Well, no, that's not the last thing we want to see. We
Oh,
actually want to see
you
the
want a
runoff.
runoff?
Yes.
Wow.
We
Why?
do. Why?
Yeah.
They'll advertise some more. Hey,
You know, it's interesting though with Senator Cornyn, who's been there for quite some time. He's got, you know, a challenger now, a formidable challenger. I'm curious to see whether, you know, Cornyn and the years that he has been there is going to outweigh somebody, you know,
Definitely.
yeah, a
Definitely.
little tougher candidate. But then Paxton has a lot of baggage that he brings with him, and are
Exactly.
people going to remember that when they have to go vote for him again? So, I don't know, lots to see, but
interesting.
I know it sure will be. Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we are going to continue. We've got the State of the Union. It was strong and steady, or it's going off course, depending on who you ask. Our panel discussions coming up after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. Well, the longest State of the Union wasn't delivered quietly. On Tuesday, President Trump outlined his administration's goals and agenda, often highlighting accomplishments and priorities. That even includes notable moments like challenging Democrats to stand if they agreed that, quote, the first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. But it wasn't all policy and politics. President Trump made sure to leave room for some pageantry that included recognizing the U.S. men's hockey team fresh off their gold medal win against Canada, a 1952 Korean War captain, a U.S. Coast Guard officer for rescue efforts in Texas, and a whole lot more. Meanwhile, we asked and you answered. We turned to you to ask, what did you think of Tuesday night's State of the Union? Well, in more than 600 comments, you didn't hold back in a wide range of responses. Among them, feelings like this one, a viewer sharing it was among the best they had ever seen and supported the accomplishments the president spoke of, not even complaining about the length of the time that the president took. Others were more critical, like this one, a user saying it started off decent until it became what they called political theater. Other comments shared a mix of what others thought were the good, the bad, and everything in between. So we continue our discussion this morning with Tanya Benavides and Carlos Guerra, and of course, Luis. That was a long State of the Union, but it got, wow, it got rowdy very quickly.
He beat his own record, right? 107 minutes. It's no Super Bowl, though. So when you talk about viewership, I think, you know, growing up, the State of the Union was something that, you know, I've always had an attune to politics. So I was interested. I looked forward to it every January, right? Like, you want to know who your president is. You want to know what they think. I think this, unfortunately for me, not surprisingly, though, read like an infomercial, a bad one.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. And like you, I think I've always looked forward to State of the Union addresses. I like them, but not just this one. And you know, putting President Trump apart, I think these State of the Unions have all moved into the whole aspect of the lack of unity that we were experiencing elsewhere cannot be more apparent. There's nothing, it's all lip service from everywhere. It's all political grandstanding on one way or another. To me, it's lost a great deal of appeal, regardless of whether it's Joe Biden or President Trump or Barack Obama or whomever you want. It just, you know, I still remember Nancy tearing up the script, you know.
Marjorie Taylor Greene screaming.
Yeah, screaming, and you know, I mean, all of these things that it's like, really? I mean, I thought this only happened in, you know, England.
I mean, you look at it, and I was looking at the previous State of the Unions, and it's interesting because they would mostly always clap for the president, regardless of which side, the entire House. Maybe they wouldn't clap as enthusiastically, but they would clap, and it wasn't until 2017 that they protested essentially and decided not to clap. I mean, there were some things that they wouldn't clap for before, but generally speaking, they would clap for everything.
There was always more respect for the office and for
Right.
the actual.
Now, it was humiliating, I would say, in 2017 when it first happened to Trump, but I think Trump has really refined the way that he does this, and that's why he he asked people to stand up for something. He basically asked for people to stand up for motherhood and apple pie.
Right.
Right.
And they wouldn't.
And they wouldn't. And so what he was doing was he was exposing the bias.
Right.
Right. And so he's refined the way that he does these State of the Unions to expose that.
I don't think it's so much him refining it as him knowing that he wouldn't get anybody to stand up for him.
Right.
Right.
Because let's be
That's part
honest,
of
the
the plan.
State of the Union is people can't afford to live and they're working harder than ever.
I know, and yes, I agree with you, but the fact remains that that has been the case for the last 20 years. It's not any different. And, this president is more polarizing than any other, and we get that. But yeah, I mean, it is really disappointing to see that more and more, at least you would think that politicians would take some opportunities to at least show us that there are some things that we can agree on. And when the only thing we can agree on, and not even that much because there's still controversy, is the hockey team winning the gold medal, that is pretty sad. That's a pretty sad state of affairs when we can't even agree on some basic things. Yes, we have different approaches and we look at things differently, but it's such a turnoff.
Yeah, I just
mean,
think
at least
that
for me.
it was. I was so disappointed and so sad seeing the toxic environment at our highest level. I mean, just to see, is this where we've come to?
Yep.
Is this where we're at right now, where we can't even, agree? And I understand what President Trump was doing, and I wonder what would have happened if the Democrats would have stood
But they
just
stand.
couldn't. They couldn't
They
because
couldn't
then they would
because
be
if they
faulted.
did, it would
Right.
be a photo op for the next 2 years saying, you see, they
Yeah.
agree with me.
Yes.
And
Because
so
they
you
take
understand
it
why
to that
they didn't.
point.
And now it's a
Take it to
photo
that
op
point.
saying, you see, they won't
They
stand
won't
up
get up.
for something
So
very obvious.
he got what he wanted.
Exactly.
Either
So
way.
Either
it
way.
it goes to the point of both sides using each other. I think the State of the Union has become also a campaign speech. It's a campaign speech. Look at what I've done. Me. I. And you're absolutely right. It has lost its what we've all thought of a State of a Union, encouraging, moving on, good things in our future. Now it was just
There's
just
always
sad
been
to see.
divisiveness in this thing. But I remember, I'm old enough to remember Bush 1, Clinton, Bush 2, where there were a lot of moments during the addresses where the whole chamber would stand up. There were a lot of instances, or at least several instances, where there was a little bit more of a united, okay, this is good. We've done, and this goes back to the whole thing, is that there's nothing that President Trump can do. Nothing. Absolutely nothing that the Democrats will ever say, oh, good job. Nothing. And there's nothing.
Or on the other side as well.
Or on the other side as well.
Yeah.
And so, and that is why, I think we should just, start over. let's modify this thing and get rid of the parties and.
I mean, yeah, because as it stands, this is what we're looking at for the next 2 years, right?
Right.
There are no prospects of anything different
No, it's not.
until something changes.
I think that division is a feature, not a bug. I think if they can't agree, then they're not going to be passing laws that, are passing regulations or laws that are going to affect one side or the other. I personally would like there to be some division, at least, when they're trying to come up with legislation that's going to affect our lives.
Yeah.
I mean, where do they go from here? I mean, where do you go? We have so many pieces of legislation that we needed to talk about. The health care that needed to be revamped. Of course, immigration, the Department of Education. I mean, all these things that they talked about, but they are so far apart from each other, and it was just heartbreaking to know that you're right. This is it for the next 2 years.
But we've heard it from members of Congress that there are more people in the middle than there are on the sides, but the ones on the sides are a lot louder, right? And the noise is coming from those sides, and at some point we need to figure out a way to fix that.
Bring it together. Yeah. Well, we wanted to continue some of the conversation on the elections we have. This coming Tuesday, of course, is Election Day. What are you guys hoping to see on Election Day?
What do you think the turnout's going to be on election day?
I-
Give me a number. How many people are going to come out and vote?
I don't know. I don't have a number. I'm just hoping that it's higher than 2022 midterm. If it's not, if a competitive Democratic primary can't help us break records, then I don't know what will.
What will?
And I think that is so key and necessary to change any of the dynamics that we've been seeing since 2016.
Yeah, we
Are
definitely.
you up for handicapping the local races?
How?
How is that?
Can you give us like, okay, so county judge.
Oh,
Who takes it?
goodness.
Oh,
Oh man.
Am I putting you on the spot?
I mean, look, I'm not 100% sure. I think if it goes to the runoff, it could be Jerry or Raul. But if it doesn't, I mean, it very well possibly could be CY. Yeah.
side.
Side. Side.
Side to the younger kids.
Oh, that's a different side. Never mind.
I have no idea on 111s though.
Yeah.
On
That
111?
is-
Yeah,
that
111 is really kind of a conundrum.
Yeah, they
See
have
what
a different strategy, right?
Completely.
Joaquin has been more, a shotgun approach. He's going everywhere. I see him everywhere. I mean, I was with my kids at a couple of events, and my kid said, "Are we following him, or is he following us?" Because we kept seeing him at events.
Yeah.
But it's on the ground game, so I do wonder what Judge Dominguez's ground game is looking like, and whether maybe that's why we don't see him if he's out knocking doors.
Let's. You're an attorney. You have to go before district judges, of course, representing the DA's office. What do you look for in a candidate?
Well, I mean, we're looking for somebody that's going to be fair and impartial, somebody that's going to look at the law and they're going to judge the law. They're not going to have any biases. Obviously, we want to look at their experience and we want to know that they're familiar with how to rule one way or another.
And do you feel both candidates?
Absolutely. I mean, they have
do
different
that.
backgrounds.
Sure.
They have different backgrounds. Joaquin was a prosecutor for a long time, and Judge Chuy Dominguez was a defense attorney, and he's been on the bench for several years.
On a personal note, when they're making this about age, makes me feel old.
Does it make you feel partial to one or the other?
Well, I get hurt when they insinuate that one is much older than the other. It's like, he's not really that old. But anyway.
Well, okay. Well,
You
once
should feel the
again,
same way, by the way.
I know I do. I'm trying to stay away from the age debate here. But, Tuesday, Election Day, we're going to have a lot more to talk about.
Whatever you
definitely.
do, go out and vote.
Yes, it
Go out
doesn't
and
matter
vote.
who
Just
you
do
vote
it.
for.
Speak your mind.
Just
And
go out
stay
and
in line
vote.
if there's a line at 7 p.m.
Oh, that's right. Stay in line. Good point there. Well, we're going to continue this morning. When we come back, it's the one thing that our panelists cannot stop thinking about. Stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. Well, it's the one thing that our panelists cannot stop thinking about, something that happened this past week, and we're going to start with Carlos.
Yeah, well, actually, I wanted to talk to about something that's going to be happening. It's going to be the reveal of the Gus Garcia bust outside of the central jury room. Valdemar Garcia Jr. actually had the idea of putting this bust out to honor the legacy of Gus Garcia. He was the first part of the first Mexican-American team to argue in front of the Supreme Court in the U.S. v. Hernandez case, and it has to do with having an impartial jury. They had a Mexican-American that was accused of murder, guilty of sin, but he was put in the jury was made up of Anglo-Americans, and they said, well. Gus Garcia argued that's not fair, but they told him, no, it is fair because he's considered white. Right. Now he said he's considered white legally, but technically we're treated as a class apart. And he won his argument.
Wow. So now we'll be honoring him with a bust.
Right outside of the central jury room.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Very fitting.
Awesome. Tanya.
Mine is not as maybe important, but I think very cool, and I think a lot of people have been following Punch
saw
the
this.
Monkey.
Yes.
Listen, these days, I think we all need to find something
We
to
do.
gather around, find our common empathy or humanity. Punch has just been keeping me going these days. When the going gets hard, I'm like, what's the update on Punch? And so the story goes that he was abandoned, orphaned, rejected by his mother, and he adopted this monkey as his pseudo mom. And now he has found, his tribe. Yesterday, he learned how to shelter from the rain. It was very cute.
That is very
That's
nice.
cute.
On Thursday, February 26th, we hit 103 degrees
Yep.
in Laredo.
Please,
Yep,
no.
it was, and I was listening to our friend Heatwave, and he was explaining how it's happened before several times, but it's happening more and more often, like breaking 100 in February. Just
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, that is crazy.
103
We're
February.
melting.
Yep.
We are melting,
See,
definitely.
this makes me want to pull out Punch the Monkey memes.
There you go.
So cute there. Okay, my one thing is this right here on your screen. Game on. Get your tickets to LA 28. They are going to go on a lottery system starting March 18 for the opportunity to purchase tickets. Of course, we're talking about the Olympic Games that are going to take place. These are the summer games. They're going to take place July 14th through the 30th of 2028. It's going to be the closest time that we can go see an Olympics. So USA, definitely
USA.
get those tickets. Okie doke, well, that does it for this episode of Beyond the Headlines. Thank you so much for tuning in. Of course, don't forget to go vote this Tuesday, very important. And then tune into KGNS News. We'll have all your updates on our website, on our streaming devices, and KGNS News at 10 o'clock. So until then, have a good day.